Hello, and welcome to part 6 of our living room environment tutorial set. Last time we finished up the ceiling and changed the... I know it looks yellow now, but remember we changed the saturation and brightness contrast of that so it looks more white. We did that in the texture settings, so it won't show up till we render it. And then we also added the window, the glass pane of the window, and then also the landscape textures. So... there we go. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to jump in and start working on the furniture. I want to do the coffee table last because I want to show you a different technique to do the wood, but we'll get to that momentarily. Let's go ahead and turn off the layer that has the walls and ceiling and everything just so we can see our couch a little better. So I'm going to hold down Shift and click on that layer, and it'll separate out the couches and the coffee table there. So now I'm going to grab the couch. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and we're still, since we're using the mirror modifier, we still only have to do half of this. So that'll work out to our benefit for the most part in this piece, because we'll only have to add the seams to half of it. So tell you what, just to be able to see things better, because that light source is kind of throwing a shadow. Not, it's not throwing a shadow, but it's not lighting up this side. So I'm going to jump back to solid view on this one. So now let's grab our edge select tool and let's add a seam along the inside the back of the cushions right there along the back. So we're going to separate that, and then we'll add one along the base of the arm, and then also along the back of the arm there. So we can zoom in here and connect those two. There we go. And we'll want to separate. Actually, not that one. I want to separate right there at the base of the back of it, right there. And we'll leave the back as is, but I want to separate the arm there, so I'm gonna add like basically along the back. If I can select just what I'm trying to select there. And we see here we have some geometry that we can't see too well, so I'm going to select in there. There we go. Should have got it. And we can click all that. And let's come down the side here. Select the outline of the back there. All the way down. Make sure you get that little guy there. And I'm just going to go ahead and Control E now, so I don't have to keep making sure I select the right thing. So I'm going to mark that one there. And I'm going to continue on. Let's select the whole edge here along the base of the back. So I'm going to hold down Alt and just click on that edge there. That'll make things a little faster. Then hold down Shift Alt and click on that edge. And then come around to the front and Shift Alt on that edge. Okay, so we got that. Let's go ahead and mark that as well. Mark the seam. Okay, now let's come up here and just outline around the front of the arm, like so. That in there. There we go. Okay, almost there. And we'll go ahead and come down here. Seeing we're meeting the first seams that we made along the inside the cushions there. So that's good. Nice and separate there. So select down the edge here, and then along the bottom of that cushion all the way to the middle. One more. There we go. And we'll go ahead and add a seam there. Okay, so now we probably are good to go on the seam markings. Basically, we're going to have one piece here, which will double on the other side. So we'll have that one piece that goes along the whole front, and then we'll have another piece that goes along the whole back. We'll have a piece that comes from the top of the cushions down, and it'll be the top of the cushions and then the front of the back cushions. And then we'll have another piece on the seat cushions. And then the chair arm itself will have a piece like so. Okay, so one beautiful thing about the mirror modifier, aside from its already obvious beauty, is the ability to copy over those seams that we just added. So if we go to our modifiers tab, and we have our mirror set down underneath this. By the way, this is called the stack, a modifier stack. Right now, the subsurface is at the top and the mirror is at the bottom. Now, this kind of reads opposite the way most other stacks would think. It kind of reads from the bottom up. So it reads, this is the first one, this is the first modifier, and then this one is added after that one. So it kind of goes Like if you're used to Photoshop layers where it shows the top one on top, this one kind of does the opposite. So let's go ahead and pop that mirror up to above the subsurf, and you can kind of already see a difference. It changed that little arch we had there at the top of the couch cushion, and it made it smooth. So right now it's smoothing all of that whole smooth geometry. So we have more actual vertices in there from the subsurf that it's mirroring, and it gives it a sharper edge. But if we move that mirror to the top, it's got that lower amount of vertices, it makes it nice and round. So make sure the mirror's at the top, and we'll hit apply, and it'll apply that mirror. So now when we tab into edit mode, you can see we have all one mesh there instead of just the half one. And you can see that it added those seams on the new side that it created, the mirrored side. And that's exactly what we want. That's the beauty I was talking about. So now we're just going to give this one UV map. You know, on the floor, ceilings, and wall, we gave it 3 different ones. On this one, we're just going to give it 1. And that's usually the case in most instances. You'll only need 1 UV map. So we'll just select everything and hit the U button and say unwrap. And now it's going to unwrap. We still have that ceiling ceiling texture selected from when we were messing with the ceiling. So we need to go ahead and X that out. And we'll just leave it as is. We won't load a texture in there right now because we haven't downloaded one yet. But I can see that there's something we missed. So if I select all of these guys, let's go to face select mode, and it's basically the same way we do it in geometry. You just select the display. Actually, that's not right. There we go. This one right there. And we can select one face out of each one of these items and Control L. And then we can come over here. Okay, I was expecting that to select only the ones that we're showing. So let's do the opposite way. We'll select one piece from each one of these. Okay, doing good so far. Control L, there we go, and then Control L. Oh, I know what happened. We didn't add any seams on the legs, so we will go ahead and do that now. Let's just add one along the bottom edge. We can just select, we can't select the whole loop around the actual edge itself, but we can select the next loop up from the edge. So we'll select that one, and then let's just select this edge here, and then that top edge is, top edge there. So we'll select just like that. Okay, and then actually, tell you what, I don't want to mess with adding seams on all of those, so I'm just going to create a second material. Let's go to our materials tab. We need to create a new one anyways. Let's tab out there. We'll say new, and we'll call this one couch dash seat fabric, because we'll be using the same one on the chairs. Okay, now I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to call this one furniture legs. You know, for that matter, I could just name that one furniture fabric, I guess. Let's just do that. Furniture fabric, and then just delete the rest of it. Okay. So let's go ahead and change the color of this a little bit so we can see a little bit of a difference. Give it a nice, slightly tan color. And we'll tab into edit mode. Excuse me, we'll go to face select mode and just select that bottom face on all those. And Control L, select all of them, and we'll say assign furniture legs to there. So there we go. So now we have 2 different materials on the same object. We're not worrying about different UV maps because the second material is not going to have UV maps. So good to go. Back to the furniture fabric, select the couch, tab back into edit mode, and right now this bright white selection here is all of these un-UV mapped, unseamed chair legs. It doesn't know how to split them apart, so it just plops them on there, you know, as just a default square. So let's scale that way down, move it up out of the way, and now we'll select everything. You can see everything's, you know, nicely, well, it's not nicely mapped out, but we can change that. Let's select all that there, only those guys, and we're going to say UVs, unwrap them again, and it should wrap them to fit the space a little better, but it's not. So let's say pack islands, and that'll do a little better. So pack islands will fit those in there a little bit better. So it looks okay for the most part, but unless we have a fabric that's going to be, you know, the same lengthwise as it is height-wise, we're going to get some weird patterning. So I want to select this front of the couch, which will be this guy's right there, and I'm going to rotate that 90. So everything's going to be facing along the grain of the fabric. So I want to select the back of it. And this will be kind of like on the walls. We'll just rotate it 90 degrees. There we go. It'll be kind of like on the walls. We can overlap and not have to worry because it's all going to be a tiled texture. Now, if you were creating a character or something that has specific mapping and specific parts, you don't want to overlap because then you'll get all that mapping on parts that it shouldn't be on. But it doesn't matter in this case since it's all going to be just one big material. So we'll just scale all these up and they'll overlap a little bit, but that'll be okay. I'll just rotate that 90 degrees. So we'll scale that up. Control L. Rotate that. I guess this is the bottom of the couch, so that can actually be black. We won't even need that. But we'll put it over here anyways. So we'll select the chair arm. Scale that up. You want it to be roughly the same proportional relative size. So you don't want to make one way too big while another one's way too small. I think this will be the other arm. Yes. So let's rotate that 180. There we go. Make that roughly the same size as the other arm. Okay, so that'll work, I believe. So let's tab out there and let's jump back to CG Textures. And we'll close these tabs that have our sceneries in them. And let's find fabric textures. So we'll say patterned fabric. Where's it at? There it was. Patterned fabric. So, okay, let's see what we can find here. Our basic color scheme of our living room is kind of a tannish, goldish, brownish type of tone, earth tones. So let's go, I wonder what this one looks like, if that one's tileable. It looks like it's probably not. It'll be, if it doesn't have the tileable thing up here at the top right, it's probably not going to tile seamlessly, so we don't want that one. Let's go to our next page. And let's see what this one looks like. Maybe that'll work. Probably not, it's probably not tileable either. Nope. So let's close that one. Let's see. Let's keep going. Oh, let's go back. I kind of liked that one in the bottom right. I'll bet you that one's tileable. No, it's not either, huh? Should be. One would think. Could make it tileable, I'm sure, in Photoshop, but I don't want to mess with that. So let's go ahead and find another one. That one wouldn't be either. Perhaps this one. Let's look at that one. And it's a set, so we might have a few different options. No, might have to just pick one and go with it. Choose one more page. You know what? Let's just go with this one here. That's a nice muted color. I'm going to choose the small one. Save link as, and we'll just call it furniture _ fabric. Okay. Minimize that, and now we'll grab this one and tab back in edit mode so we have all of our UV selected, and now we'll load that image into here just like we did on the other guys. Furniture fabric. Open that. And we're not going to see it now because we're in solid mode, so if we slip back into texture mode, we'll have to go here and add it to our material. So we'll scroll back up here, create a new texture slot, fabric, oops, call it furniture fabric, okay? And image or movie, expand image, open, textures, furniture fabric, open. Now we can see it on there. But now it's only tiling it according to the object. It's acting like it's a generated, like the cloud texture or something. It's just throwing it on there. It's not paying attention to the UV coordinates we so painstakingly added. So we have to tell it to use those coordinates. So we go down here to mapping and say UV. So now we have it nicely mapped onto our couch. So that looks kind of cool, kind of nice. The fabric's a little thick, a little big. So we'll have to change that. But before I do that, the shininess is really bugging me. So let's go back to our materials and we will set the intensity of the specular way down. There we go. Okay, so now back to our fabric texture, and we'll go to image. Actually, it's under mapping there. Let's see what 3 by 3 by 3 looks like. Oops. By 3. There we go. That looks okay, I guess. It's not the best. Maybe let's try double that, make it 6. Okay, so I guess that that'll work, I think. Okay, so now we have our couch texture added on there. Looks good. Let's give it a little bit of roughness too, the geometry, just like we did on the walls and everything, and the carpet. But as you can see, 1.0 is still way too much, so let's try 0.2. That's probably still a little bit high. Let's try 0.1. Just give it a nice subtle texture to it. You can see a little bit of a texture there. So that's looking okay. Yeah, okay. Now, got the couch all set. Go ahead and save that one. Let's jump over and do, we only need to do one of the chairs because we can delete the old one and replace it with the one that's already texture mapped, because we still have to add the seams, and we still have the mirror modifier turned on these, so we'll do the same thing like we did on the couch, bump that mirror modifier up above the subsurf, and it'll make that nice and smooth on the top. Now we'll come in here, and this will be a little faster. Let's go back to our solid view so we can see everything we're working on. Go to our edge select, select that loop there, and then up the side. And we'll just cut out just like we did on the couch. Now in a perfect world, or if you were building this scene as just a personal project or for a company or something like that, you could build the couch and finish it completely with all the textures and everything, and then turn it into a chair, and it would still maintain all of these seams and everything as long as you didn't get rid of them. So next time you start making an environment, you might keep that in mind. Save you a little bit of work. Like we wouldn't have to be doing this, adding the seams to the chair too. Oops, wrong line. There we go. So you just have to add it the one time. So now we have to, I don't know. One thing you can do to make your work area a little faster, a little easier, is if you want to make this window bigger so you don't have all this clutter on the screen, you can hit the Control Up button and it'll maximize that particular window. So then you have a lot more elbow room to get in here and kind of, oops, shift select, there we go. Get in here and select all these things a little easier. So we'll select those and then go up the back there, and with holding down the Alt and clicking, it makes things go a lot faster. You don't have to click each individual one. Oopsie. Okay, so I don't want that one. I will click this individual right there. Okay, now I didn't add any seams yet, but I went ahead and selected everything and it needs seams, and I'll go ahead and hit Control E, mark the seam, tab out. Now we hit Control down arrow and it'll minimize it again or restore it back to its original size. And now I can go ahead and apply that mirror. Tab back in Animate Mode, you can see it added that UV coordinates around there. So I'm going to do the same thing like we did on the couch. Separate these the furniture legs out from the, there we go. There we go. Separate them out from the rest of the material map. So let's go to our materials, and we're going to go ahead and add 2 slots there. And we're not going to create new ones this time because we already have materials created that we want to reuse. So let's go to that first slot, hit the little bubble there, and say furniture fabric. Then we'll grab that second slot, hit the little bubble there, and go furniture legs. Okay, and make sure you assign the furniture legs to the legs. The fabric will be automatically assigned to everything else since it's the first one in the stack. So good to go there. So now, basically, since we added that fabric texture to the couch, or to the chair, and we already did all the work setting it up on the couch, it's automatically added to the chair. We don't have to do any more work to it. So if we go to texture mode, the only thing we have to do is set it to have, actually, I guess we have to unwrap it first. So let's select everything and Control, actually just the U button, unwrap. And we will say unwrap again. So it's kind of skewed over here. Let's select what will be the legs. If I can, I think I'm still in, yeah. Select the vertex select mode so I can select that corner vertex group there. Control L. This will be the legs. So let's move that up. Okay, so now we just have to rearrange everything here. Let's select all these guys, and we'll say. Well, by the way to scroll this back and forth is you just click and hold with the middle mouse button. That's how I'm doing that. So you go UVs, and we will say pack islands, and it'll put them in there a little easier, a little better. So now we can kind of just stack them on top of each other, just like we did on the couch. I want to rotate this 90 degrees. That's the bottom. Doesn't really matter. We're not going to see it, but I would like to, just for uniformity. And then select the front piece. Rotate that 90. Scroll, size that up. This looks like this is going to be probably the seat cushion. So I need to rotate that 180, I believe. Scroll, size that up a little bit. Move it in place. And then the chair arms. Need to rotate those 90 degrees. Scale those up a bit. And the other arm. Rotate that. Probably negative 90 this time. No. Positive 90 is correct. Okay, let's get that in there. And now we have what looks like the chair back. And it's a little ugly. It's kind of skewed. So one way we can fix that is to rotate it to where the skewed is kind of tall, like so. Then I'm going to scale it on the y-axis and kind of flatten it on that dimension so it kind of squishes it back to where it should be. So let's rotate that around like so, and then scale that up a bit. Okay, so now, like I was saying on the couch, since we set that texture and material up already, we're all done on that chair. We don't have to add the material, the texture, or anything. It's already set. So that's if you have matching chairs. Now if you have chairs that have different fabric on them, you'll have to set up the new texture. But in any case, that's all set. So I'm going to go to top view, going to grab that other one, get rid of that guy. Get rid of him. He doesn't belong here anymore. So we'll Shift D to duplicate the chair that now has a material texture on it. Okay, so really coming along. Let's go ahead and save this guy. I know we're sitting on 22 minutes already, but I want to go ahead and finish up. The last part's going to be a little easier. We're going to grab those furniture legs, and we're going to add one of these procedural textures to it. I know I was talking about the clouds earlier, but the clouds is just one example of what procedural textures can be. So I'm going to set a new one, and I'm going to set this one to wooden legs. Okay, and right now, see, the type is cloud, so it's kind of a cloudy looking texture there. I don't want clouds. I want to go up to the wood texture right now, and it shows basically just diagonal lines. But if we turn on the both viewport here, that gives us the texture preview and the material preview. Turn on the monkey head there, set the both, and we can change this to where it looks like a wood grain texture. We don't even need an actual image texture. It'll be emails. It'll only be a procedural texture that's basically similar to like a vector image, but it won't cost any extra megabytes or bytes at all. It won't, it's not like adding an image that's like 500 kilobytes or something like that. It's not going to add anything because it's just a procedural calculated on the fly texture. So the way we can modify this wood grain is, first thing, we want to change the color of it. We don't want black and white wood. Whoever heard of black and white wood? So right now we turn on color ramp, and that gives us some options here. The first, it goes from a transparent black to a opaque white, a non-transparent white. So the way we can change that is, right now the black one is selected. So you can tell what it is right here. It's black and it's transparent. So I click on the transparent section there, set the A, which is the alpha, which means that's basically, it means it's an alpha map, a transparent map. So let's move that all the way up to 1.0, and you can see that it is a black color. So let's raise that brightness up a little bit, and then move it over into the brownish area. Okay, and now select the white section, and we want to move that over into the brownish area too, but not quite as dark, but almost. So we'll move it about to right there. So we got a tan and a brown. Now it's looking better already, but still not quite wood. Excuse me. So now the way we get the wood grain and the wavy lines and everything is going to be down here under the wood setting. So let's collapse our colors. And there's 3 different types of wood that you can do. The sine, which is like a mathematical sine, cosine, tangent. This just basically the straight diagonal lines. If you go saw, it's going to be basically the same thing as sine, but they're going to be a lot sharper. And then try, it's also basically the same thing. It just kind of maps the colors a little bit. It kind of reflects the colors. As you can see, it goes dark to light and then light to dark. So it kind of reflects the colors rather than this is like a sharp contrast between the two, and this is just a blur between the two. So let's set it to, I like to use try. And then the bands is basically, it's going to be just banded directly around the objects. If we go back to a sphere mode, you can see it's just an even banding around it. Rings is basically, you can't really tell on the sphere, but if we go to the monkey head, it's kind of hard to tell on here too. Let's turn the glossiness down so we can see this a little bit better. So go back to our materials tab, set the specular intensity down to, for now, we'll just set it to 0 just so we can see what we're doing. There we go. So back to our texture settings. You can kind of see it works a little better as far as wooden objects go that aren't going to be, just basic, that aren't going to be a wooden ball, a wooden sphere. You can also do band noise, which is basically the same thing as band. It just adds a little noise to it. That also helps make it look more like realistic wood. What I usually like to use is the ring noise. So that adds, it looks like, like it's made out of walnut or something like that. And if you want to change the shape of the grains and everything like that, you can just change the size right here, and it changes the size of the waves in the grain, and you can change the turbulence where it kind of adds more waves to it. So if you really want a nice walnut texture, you want to go like that, probably. Really high turbulence, and you can see it really looks like wood over here. I don't want it quite that high. I'm going to set it, let's make it about 20. And then set the size, maybe a little smaller. That's still kind of walnutty. I'd rather have a nice cedar or something like that. So let's set that down to just 5. And then you can also change the size of the banding between the two by coming down here just like we did on the texturing of the actual image maps and change the mapping right here. So we set that, we change that X, you can see it's not really changing anything in our texture preview, but on our monkey header you can see it's getting a lot thinner. So if you change it up, the wood grain gets a lot closer together. So let's make that about 5, and we'll call that done on the wood grain. So now let's go back to our material settings. Give it a little bit of a sheen. It's got some varnish on it, maybe. So 0.1 we'll say, and then the hardness, let's change that down to 20. Yeah, I guess that'll work. Maybe a little bit less intense, so 0.05. Just a little bit of a very, very subtle sheen to it. Now, one thing to really help it bring out that wood grain is just like we did on the other textures, go ahead and set it to be a normal as well. Now, this can get kind of ugly if you're not careful. It'll add way too much fake geometry, which is basically what this does. It adds the illusion of depth by just adding extra shadows and highlights to wherever it's added. It's not actually changing the geometry at all. It's just adding extra highlights and shadows to make it look like the geometry has changed. So if you look at our sphere, you can't really see much difference, but if you raise that up, you can start seeing it. And the one other reason that is you're not seeing much difference is because our colors are so close together, so similar in shade. The geometry normal is based on the black and white version of this image. So if we wanted to copy this image, this wood texture, if we come down here, clicked the little thing, little image tic-tac or checkerboard, and said wooden legs, excuse me, it would create a duplicate of it. But any changes we made to this would be reflected into the original. So what we would need to do is make sure you click this 2. What that 2 means is this texture is now being used twice. So I click that, and it creates a copy of it that we can change. So let's change this one to say wooden legs, black and white. Or you could just put B and W if you wanted to. Black and white. There we go. And now we'll change those colors to the original black and white. Like, who heard of black and white wood? No one. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like an ash color. I don't know. But we'll change that back to black and white. And we'll have to set the mapping back. So right now this one's mapped 5 times. Let's go ahead and collapse those colors again. Select this one. And you go ahead and map that one 5 times. So now what we want to do is turn this black and white image off of the color influence. So turn that off, and we'll need to set it on the normal. So now you can actually see like a wood grain texture in there. So let's turn the wooden legs color off of the normal and just have it only controlled by the black and white. Now it's set to 1.0, and you can see a lot higher difference than in the colors than we had setting it on the normal. So if I raise that up to the 5, like we had maxed out on the colors, you can see it's very ugly. It looks like very rough wood. So, you know, you might want to use this at that high texture if you're making like an old fence or, you know, something that's been out in the weather for a long time. It's even more prominent on our monkey head. You can't even hardly see the shape of the original monkey head because that's so severe. So let's set that way down. And the monkey head is, like I said before, a lot better representation than just the sphere because it gives you all the curves and everything that you'll actually see on a real object. So let's set that, maybe 0.35 will be, that's still a little too high. Let's go 0.25. And now you can go to the sphere and you won't really see much difference there, but trust me, it's going to be there. Okay, so now we have our wood material set up. So you can't see, that's one downfall though to the working with procedural textures. They're not visible in your 3D viewport right here like all the other textures are. But they will be visible when we render them. So we'll get to that in a second. Gone over 30 minutes here, but we're almost done. Almost done. Just stick with me. Let's go ahead and add this furniture legs material to our coffee table. Make that a nice wooden coffee table. Furniture legs. So tell you what, let's do. Instead of naming this furniture legs, we'll just delete the legs part and we'll just put wood at the beginning. So we'll just say wooden furniture. And you can see that it's applied to 4 different objects. It's being used 4 times, and that means it's used on the coffee table, then it's used on each one of the couch, each one of the chairs and the couch as the legs. So it's counting at 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's being used 4 times. Okay, so now, as I said, we're almost done. We turn on the layer that has the walls and everything. We can see what it's going to look like. If we go back to perspective view, 5 button on our numpad, we can kind of arrange that in the window. And once we render it, which I really would like to include that, stick with me. We're almost there. All we got to do is set up a camera and set the light up. So by default, we have a camera set in the scene. And this, if we hit the 0 button, we can see through the camera. Now, what you could do to get that camera lined up, say I want the camera to be like looking at the living room right here. You could do one of 2 things. Or I'm sure there's more than options to do that. You could grab the camera and move it into place physically and just kind of go to our side view and we'll rotate it up, move it down, and then look through it and kind of just keep modifying it until it's in the right place. Or you can just set your view up, go to perspective view. The camera's almost in the right place, but say we want it about maybe right there. All we have to do now is hit Control, and I believe it's Control-Alt-0 on our numpad, yes. And it adds, it turns that view that we were just looking through, it turns that into the camera. So it moves the camera to be that view. Now it looks a little different because our viewport has different settings than our camera. And the way we can change that is come over here to our camera settings. It's selected. So the focal length is 35. That's basically 35 millimeter lens. So it's kind of almost a fisheye, but not quite. It's, it's typically the standard lens you'd find in like a disposable camera or something like that. But we want to zoom out a little bit, or actually zoom in a little bit to kind of flatten it telephoto lens style. I usually like a lens of about 55 to 60. Excuse me. So let's just go 55 for now. And you can see it looks like it zooms way in. But we can zoom out manually. We have our camera selected. If we hold down the shift button and hold down let's see. Hold down the G button and then the middle mouse button And if we click and drag, we can move that out, and everything inside this white border is going to be what the camera renders. So we don't want it out here because then we'll see the outsides of the walls. We don't want that. So we want to zoom in until we have just inside the view. And then if you want to hit the R button, you can rotate it in our view. So maybe we can point it down just a bit and maybe a little bit. It kind of goes opposite the way you move your mouse, so be careful like that. Okay, so we got it there. That's the angle I want, but I need to be a little higher. So we'll hit the G button and just drag our mouse up, and it'll automatically move the camera along with it. So let's move it over here so we can see part of the edge of the door. We forgot to texture the doorknob. Real quick, we'll just create a new material real quick. We'll call this one metal. Okay, and the only thing we're going to do with this one is give it a mirror and set the mirror to about 0.25. I find that, well, maybe a little higher. Let's try 0.5. And then set the specular to ward ISO, make it real shiny, intensity 0.7, and you see it kind of looks kind of chromish. And let's dumb the gloss down just a bit, say 0.85, and then maybe make the color a little grayer so it's a little darker metal. Okay, so that'll be our doorknob. So now we can grab our camera and move it, hit the G button in the middle mouse, and just move it out so we can see a little bit more of that door. Okay, so now we're going to save it. Oops, I just saved over, no, this is part 6. Okay, I thought I saved over part 5. So save, 6, yes. Okay, so now to render, we have our light here, and looks like it's good. One thing we need to change on the light, right here it says inverse square. Change that to inverse linear. It'll make your light work a lot better. It'll be a lot brighter and throw better shadows. So let's see real quick what this scene looks like. Control S to save, and we'll hit the F12 button. Now, if you're on a Mac, I found that it has a lot of shortcuts attached to the F12 button, so you can either hit the F12 button or come over here to your camera icon there and just hit the render button, and it'll render your scene, and you can see what it's going to look like with all your new textures on there. So you got the doorknob material. It looks a little too shiny, but we won't fuss with that. Our coffee table looks a little weird because that wood grain's a little big on it, so we might want to fix that. You can see the pane dividers are throwing shadows onto the window, so they're a little too thick. But in any case, time's going really late. I apologize. I'm going to call this the end of part 6, and I'll go ahead and do a part 7 just to kind of tie up loose ends, and we'll call it done. So apologize for the extra long tutorial on this part 6, and I'll stop talking now.